Hey everybody, Average Picker here. So this is a video response to a little back and forth I was having with, and I'm sorry I'm going to mispronounce it, probably Swynndle. I'm not really sure. There's not enough vowels in it for me to accurately pronounce. He's got this. He's a lock picker. He's got this cute little avatar though. It's like a little kiwi bird with a long beak that has a rake on it, and I love it. That thing makes me kind of giggle every time I see it. But so we were having a little back and forth, and he had some questions and stuff about the overset video I had done on detecting if pins were overset, namely about where I talked about lightly raking across the tips of the pins, and if in searching for a gap, right? And he was basically saying that the pins don't return to their at-rest state necessarily, right? Now, when I used to do videos, I used to always wrap them in these disclaimers that I was generally speaking, and maybe I should have done that on this one, on that one. Generally speaking, this is something you can do. But he is right. It is possible to have picked a pin stack, have the driver set, and for whatever reason, even though theoretically the key pin should return to its at-rest state and should be sitting down there and be feelable, it's not. Maybe the lock is particularly gunky, or the pin itself is just particularly light, and for whatever reason, the friction inside the chamber on it prevents that key pin from dropping all the way back down. I have been known to give the top of a lock a tap or two sometimes when I've had particular issues with wondering if something is overset or not. And the other thing is, if you're picking Euro style and you're picking it properly, where the lock is like that, the pins are going to all just technically be dropped in their at-rest state, all the key pins, and because they're different heights to work with the key, dragging your pick out across them may give you kind of a false reading. So let's flip the camera around though and take a look at what he is saying, and we'll look at it a little bit, and I'll try to offer up something, though I'm going to just say, what, you're right. Sometimes, you can't tell. It's not a perfect system. So but let's look at it in a little more detail. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pretend this is a lock here, and these are our chambers, and we don't need driver pins for what I'm going to show you. And basically what he was getting at was, you come in here, let's say, and you start picking. Now theoretically, because of gravity and stuff, as you pick these pins, let's say we set, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. We set pin stack 1. This pin should fall back down into its at-rest state. Pick 2, and we've got it. Let's say we've got it picked, right? But for whatever reason, friction, as I said, the lock's just a little gunky. Maybe the pin is just a little light. It does not drop back down, but chamber 2 is picked. And let's say, and we'll say 3 is overset, right? So what I was saying you could do was you could get your pick in and drag it loosely across, and you're looking for those gaps. Let's put that guy down at rest. So in this case, what would happen is you would feel that, not feel anything there, and think, okay, 4 could be overset, or 3 could be overset. Sorry, we're only dealing with 4 pins here. That could be overset. That could be overset. That one's good, right? Maybe you're still feeling even spring tension on it or something. But yeah, anything below our shear line should theoretically drop back down. So in this case, we would have an overset, and it would feel just like that gap I was describing. But let's say it's not the case. And this is, we'll say, picked. And again, because of gunk or just whatever, the lock's flipped, you're not feeling it. And that is entirely possible. So that's what he's getting at. So that you would feel a pin, you'd feel a pin, you wouldn't feel a pin, you'd feel a pin, and you may think this one is overset, even though it's not. So this is what I've said. Sometimes I have tapped the top of the lock before, just hoping that's going to drop down. The other thing, especially with light pins, without that spring tension pushing down on it, it can feel like a gap sometimes. You might not necessarily feel that pin as you're raking across, because it is just so incredibly light inside the chamber. So it's entirely possible it could be down here, and it's set and everything, and you go across, but you just don't feel it. I've had that happen plenty of times. Usually when that happens, I just tuck it into the back of my head that I'm not sure about pin 2, or I'm not sure about a pin towards the front of the lock. Now, one advantage, this one's not the best, and if we're pretending this is a lock, let's realize these gaps between these pins are exaggerated, right? I mean, we all know that gap is actually much, much tighter than that. But if you're using a pick, like say the Tron, that is kind of pointy, right? It's not too big and flat-ended like, let's say, a DeForest Diamond or something like that. And this, again, doesn't always work because sometimes you just don't have the room in the keyway to do it. But one thing I have done before is I have, instead of trying to feel the tips of the pins, I have tried to feel the sides of the pins by jamming the pick into each one and letting it bump. So I would go boom, and so what I'm doing is I'm not going for the bottom of the pin, I'm going for the side of the pin, like that, if you can see that, right? I'm trying to come in and hit like that part of it, and then when I do, I slightly let it lower right across it, and I hopefully come up and can hit the next one and can kind of do the same thing. And the reason I've done that on occasion is exactly what he was talking about, because you may not be able to feel this pin. Now, it may not be stuck up in the chamber, right? Like exactly like he was saying, but without the spring tension, it may be just so lightweight, you just cannot tell 100%. Plus, if you're deep in the lock, you're going to be getting feedback because you're going to be hitting, potentially one of the other pins with your pick, and it can be a little bit, is it there, is it not? So sometimes I will do this, and what I'm hoping basically to do is just create enough tension against the side of it that it wedges that pin in the chamber a little bit. And that way, even though I may not be able to feel the vertical on it, because it's just so incredibly lightweight, I may be able to feel the, horizontal on it. I'm starting to feel like a Twilight Zone episode, right? So I may be able to feel that part of the pressure of it against the chamber, even though I can't feel that part, if that makes sense. So if I may rake out, feel a pin, I'm not so sure, feel a pin, pressure, come up under it, getting some pressure. Okay, got the pin, it's probably set and I'm just not feeling it. But again, yeah, I mean, like I said, he is correct. It is possible to have a pin set, and for whatever reason, the key pin has just not dropped all the way down to its at-rest state, and it's going to feel like a gap. So that's why we want to fall back on, just other ways maybe to detect. And let's face it, I overset pins all the time. So even though I'm telling you how to detect them, it's not a perfect thing for me, and I'll dare say everybody out there gets oversets. I don't know anyone that's maybe picking all the time without ever getting one. So it's just one of those things. But the more you can know to look for and try to help detect, the better. And I'll point out too, another way to tell if you can't tell, and again, I'm saying this very generally and broadly, and it's not 100% accurate, is just your experience of what the lift was that you were making at the time, right? So if that pin is set, but whatever reason is not dropping down, or you can't feel it and it's feeling like a gap, if you can go back and remember what you were doing at the time, that can help you kind of judge whether you maybe overset it or not, right? I mean, experience will tell you. Of course, I grabbed a lock without a key. That those are kind of your lifts there. If what you were doing was ending up with the pick really digging in deep, and now you're going back and you're feeling a gap. You could have overset it. Now obviously this length between the shear line and the pin being set can vary between lock and lock, but experience-wise, I think we get a pretty general good idea of if we're where we are in our lift. And I mean, sometimes it does take a really ugly steep lift to get a pin to set. But if you're having trouble detecting one, that's something else you can just fall back to and go, what was that lift like? Was I really having to work the pick at a weird angle and really get up in there? Or did it feel like a normal lift? And if you feel confident in the lift, just feel confident that that gap is just the pin not having fallen back to being at rest, and keep on picking. So yeah, I'm out of mocha. I hope that helped a little bit, and I appreciate the comment, man. I really do. And I will point out this is another reason to take advantage of us smaller channels, because we're able to have these back and forths, and we're able to come out and do videos addressing these comments and things like that. And I think that's awesome. That just starts pulling all that community knowledge together. But it's really nice to be able to say, you know what, okay, yeah, I'm able to address these, whether either in the comments or coming out and doing a video like this. And like I said, that's just the advantage of these smaller channels. We're able to get away with that because we're not flooded with thousands upon thousands of questions and just go, oh, I just won't come in at all and answer any of them. So yeah, I will try to remember to put a link to his channel below in case you're not already subscribed. Go to him, go do that. And thanks again for bringing that up. I do really appreciate it, and I appreciate these back and forths. And I'm always happy to try to expound on or answer these questions and things if I can. So you guys have a good one.